So I can't talk about storytelling without starting with a story. I want to tell you about a guy that I know who bought his first home in the month of September. It was a 1,000 square foot, 2-bedroom townhouse, little tiny thing, but it was his first home. In December of that year, he got married to the woman of his dreams. And then 30 days later, a little over 30 days later, on Valentine's Day of that following year, he walked into the office to find out that he had lost his job. Downsizing. New home, new mortgage, new wife, no job. On the way home that day, he called his father to tell him the news and try and sort through things. And his dad said to him, "Pack your bags, we're taking you and your wife to Disney World." And the guy said to his dad, "Dad, I've got to do my resume, I've got to apply for jobs, I've got to figure out how I'm going to pay for mortgage and all these bills." And his father stopped him and said, "Never in your life will you have a full week with no responsibilities like you do right now. Mom and I are paying for it, let's go." So they went to Disney World. This guy's wife has never been to Disney World before. They had a great time. They came back. He started applying for position after position after position. This guy's wife had an undergrad degree in counseling, a master's degree in rhetoric and public address, and instead of using her well-funded education, she took a secretarial job just so that money could start coming in. This guy was applying for job after job. He couldn't find one. He had to keep going to unemployment training because he wasn't being able to be placed in order to keep getting those unemployment checks. Until finally, 2.5 months later, he applied for a job on hotjobs.com to be the electric product manager for Coldwell Banker. 15 years and 4 kids later, that man's standing before you right now. Now, at some point in this story, you may have connected with me, whether it was about losing your job, getting married, buying that first home, going to Disney World, 4 kids. Yes, I have 4 boys. My wife is really happy I'm here in sunny California, and she's home alone with the 4 boys. But stories allow us to connect with people on a deeper level than just facts and figures. And that is the key to recruiting. That, I believe, is the key to future success within the real estate industry as well. Plato had this to say about stories. No one understood him because he was speaking Greek. But when they finally interpreted it, he said, "Those who tell the stories rule society." And that is true. And hopefully you will walk away this afternoon understanding what makes a good story and how to communicate that in order to attract the right type of people, not everyone, to your company. We're obsessed in our industry with leads. We want leads, more leads. Give me leads. Give me thousands of leads. I'll pay for them. But you don't want 1,000 leads. You want one good lead, because you will spend less time, less money on one good lead than you will sorting through those thousands. And a story can help you do that. In preparation for this presentation, I went on realtor.org to find out what are the stories being told right now about recruiting. How are we training people? What are we saying that these brokers and office managers and these team leaders need to learn about how to attract talent to their organization? And here's what I found. Over 175 different articles on recruiting. Recruiting basics category, which is the one all the way to the left, had 75 articles in and of itself. There are articles on recruiting Gen X versus Gen Y versus boomers versus new to the business versus old to the business. It's mind-numbing. There is no way you could go through everything here and be able to understand clearly how to communicate your message to recruit talent to your organization. However, with all these different demographics and household statistics and all these different profiles of people that are listed here, one thing is in common. One thing. They're all human. Doesn't matter if you're Gen X, you're a millennial, you're a baby boomer, you're new to the business, you're old to the business, what's your demographic statistics, your household income. We are all human. And humans are moved by emotions. And a story can move emotions better than anything else that is out there. Storytelling is often a big trend in marketing publications today. You can't pick up an article, read a blog, listen to a podcast about marketing in which storytelling is not a core component. But is it just some fad being spouted by marketing gurus, or is it truly a mechanism that can help move the needle on your business? That's the question that I hope to answer. And while we've all in our minds had these theories about how stories work and the importance of them, science is now caught up with what we had been thinking. And science has shown that our hopes, our fears, our attitudes, our beliefs are all shaped more by stories than by anything else. You've heard about being left-brained and right-brained. It's an oversimplification of how the mind works, but there are two parts to the brain, a neocortex and the limbic system, and then there's the brainstem, which I won't get into what that does. But the neocortex handles all the facts and the figures and the analytics. When you go into a department store and it says 25% off, your brain goes 1/4 times the price tag equals, but that's how much is off this price, and you analyze that in your mind. The limbic system is where your attitudes, your hopes, your beliefs, your fears all reside. And the interesting thing is, the limbic system is the part of the brain that controls decision making. Not the analytic side, the part with all the hopes and the dreams and all the fluffy marketing stuff. That's the part of the brain that is deciding to do one thing or another. And a story can help us do that. A story can mold a person when it helps shape your beliefs. In fact, one psychologist said that entering a story radically alters the way information is processed. Because when we are presented with facts and figures and statistics, we accept those with our dukes up. We question them. You're down at a recruiting appointment with someone, you're saying, I helped this person increase their business by X% in X amount of months. And the person on the other side of the table is saying, I wonder why it wasn't more. Wonder what their situation was. They're in a different market. They don't handle the same type of clientele that I do. But when you tell a story, it actually renders us as human beings defenseless. That we are willing to accept things that are beyond expectation because it is wrapped in a story. It is why when you watch a movie that happens in downtown Los Angeles and there's a cop chase, that you can believe that they can get across town in 10 minutes or less. It is physically impossible. But yet we're willing to put that aside because it's part of the story and the narrative that we are entering into and willing to accept things because they are wrapped in a story. The interesting thing about stories is that they allow us to empathize. I've never empathized with a calculator or statistics, especially not business statistics, which is the only C I got in all of college. And I hated that class, but that's because statistics do not have feelings. They do not have meaning beyond representing something greater than or less than. But a story impacts us as human beings in our minds. Because when you hear a story that moves you, that touches you, that connects with you in some way, shape, or form, there is a chemical that is released in your brain called oxytocin. They call this the love molecule or the trust molecule. Because when you connect with whether it be a brand, a person, a story, an occurrence that you empathize with, this chemical is released in your brain, and then whether you like it or not, whether you're thinking about it or not, the next time you encounter that person, brand, story, it is released again. And you feel good about associating with this person. And you ever get that sixth sense about, I really like this person. I don't have the factual reasons why, I don't know, I haven't really analyzed the resume, but down deep in my heart, I like this person. I trust this person. It's because of oxytocin. And when it comes right down to it, the way to win the hearts and minds of today's consumers or our future agents working as part of our business is by starting with the words, once upon a time. But there's something wrong in our industry. We have forgotten how to tell good stories. There's a right way and a wrong way to tell the story, and we'll take you through that in a second. We have fallen prey to the wrong way of telling a story, which is called inadequacy marketing. It's a very familiar tale where the construct of it is nothing new to us, and Snow White is actually a perfect example of it. So here's how inadequacy marketing works. In a story of this nature, you start your story with the damsel in distress, who is up against a villain who is bent on her destruction, and the only possible way that she can ever overcome this villain is if a hero swoops in to save the day. This is the story we tell ad nauseum in real estate today. About, oh, this agent, you're working for that other company. There's no possible way you can have future success unless you come join me. Or I, brand, have this certain thing that you do not possess, and the only way that you will find success is if you possess it likewise. Here's an example of how that story is being told today. We've all seen this. I've blocked out the brands to save them from embarrassment, but we love this chart. This is the ultimate recruiting and consumer marketing chart in real estate today. It is. Let me put together a list of things that only my company offers, and then when I compare it to all the other competitors in my marketplace, they all pale in comparison. This is how we recruit today. Join us. Look at how good we are. We are the #1 company in this area on a Tuesday with a full moon, and it's partly cloudy outside. Look at all these statistics, and when you read this, you're presented with basically the same inadequacy marketing construct of Snow White. That we will be your knight in shining armor. There is no way you'll possibly overcome this villain that is against you unless you have my help. But there is actually a scientifically proven method that is taught in literary classes, in acting schools, in writing academies across the country. And the right way to tell a story is a method called the hero's journey. Think of any classic tale that you've read or seen a movie of, from The Wizard of Oz to Lord of the Rings to Harry Potter to Star Wars to The Matrix. It all follows the same construct, which we'll take you through right now. We'll use Harry Potter as an example. So remember with Snow White, we started with who? The damsel in distress. In Harry Potter, who do you start with? You start with the hero. He's an imperfect hero, a hero nonetheless. He also is up against a villain who is bent on his destruction. But instead of needing a knight in shining armor to swoop in and save the day, he seeks the guidance of a mentor, a guide, to show him the way, to help him in overcoming this villain. If there is ever a construct that is perfectly suited for recruiting talent today, it is this method of storytelling. Because you all are the guides. You are the mentors. You are there to help others be more successful. You're not there to be the knight in shining armor, nor do you want to be, because you all have enough of other stuff to worry about than trying to swoop in and save the day every single time someone comes to you for help. But instead, when we tell our stories as us being the guide, the mentor that others can seek in order to help them achieve the goals that they want, that is the way to tell a story. We're going to get into 3 specific areas where I see this type of storytelling being able to play out, which we're going to cover right now. And the first area, which has been talked about already and is going to be talked about afterwards, and hopefully by now you realize how essential this element is to the future success of your business, and that word is culture. How are we talking about our culture? Are we just like, hey, we have fun, we have parties, and we have bake-offs and whatever? But how is culture permeating the stories that you are telling? And is it powerful enough that it is able to be the sole focus of things? I'm going to show you an example right here in a second of possibly the greatest culture in college sports today. And I hate to admit it, because I was raised for part of my childhood in Columbus, Ohio, just a stone's throw away from Ohio State University. But today, the greatest culture story in all of college sports is from the University of Michigan. Take a look.
It's an amazing day here in Ann Arbor. This is the University of Michigan. Thank you very much. Does anybody here like football?
What you saw here was the ultimate recruiting video in college football today. It's the ultimate recruiting experience. This is an event that Jim Harbaugh puts on every single year when those who have committed to attend Michigan are officially signed. They host this great event. They bring in past alumni. Doesn't hurt when you have Tom Brady and Derek Jeter able to be on stage. You get people to meet there. But from Jim Leland to Ric Flair, he has created a culture at Michigan that celebrates the athletes. Whether you are a new signee just joining, and guess what, you're never going to take a snap in a bowl game, and you're just basically going to be a walk-on, to the guy who's the heralded five-star recruit who's going to be the starting quarterback for the next 4 years. He has created this culture that people want to join Michigan just to experience this event. How many touchdowns did you see thrown here? How many statistics were put up? How many championships? None. Because it was all about the culture that he has created, that is surrounded by the people who are part of that team. This is something that we can easily implement. You already have successful stars that are part of your teams. How are you celebrating them? And it's not just simple awards and handing out certificates and trophies and winning contests, but what is it that is motivating them to stay with you? What is that story? That is where your culture is shaped and defined. Why are the people still there with you? It's not about having fun. It's not about parties. It's not about per-person productivity. Those are all the peripheral elements. But at its core, why do people want to stay with you? Why is your company different than the 13 other real estate companies that are within a stone's throw from your current location? Celebrate that. Allow it to permeate everything that you do. Jim Harbaugh is known for being one of the top recruiters, that he will sleep in people's front lawns until midnight on that first day that he can recruit someone because he wants them that badly. And that culture is personified both by himself personally, but in everything that the University of Michigan does. Culture is one. Second area that we can improve on in telling our story for recruiting is by showcasing our humanity. Not focusing again on the folks and the figures, but what do we as human beings, how can we connect? Why do people want to connect with us? You know what one of the most inhuman things in the world today is? A website. It's ones and zeros, bits and bots. It doesn't do anything human. But yet, one website has created one of the most human recruiting videos I've ever seen. Take a look.
Broadcast yourself. Tell us your story.
All right, so here we are on the elephant.
Tell us what makes you laugh. What brings you joy. Tell us what moves you. What makes you sing. And makes you dance. Tell us what makes you think
Stay hungry, stay foolish.
and compels you to act. We asked you to tell your story to the world. And then a funny thing happened. The world talked back. The world showed us its creativity, its artists and actors, its singers and songwriters, its musicians, beauticians, even mathematicians, its cooks, thieves, wives, and lovers. The world broadcast its most compelling moments. Moments of triumph and tragedy, of choice and consequence. Moments that gave voice to the oppressed, frustrated the powerful, and stirred our conscience.
So here I stand, one gut among many.
The glory of war, the brutality of war, and the gravity of gravity. And the world shared like never before, across countries, beyond borders, across cultures, creating trends, upending traditions, shared stories of departures, journeys, reunions, love, loss, progress. We are YouTube. We empower the world to create, broadcast, and share.
And that's pretty much all there is to say.
They empower the world to create, broadcast, and share. They didn't talk about millions of views and how simple it is to upload videos to their platform. They talked about, here is the product of what we've created. And they celebrated those that were part of it. You think, I can't create something like this. And if you didn't feel anything when watching some of this footage here, you need to get your pulse checked, because there's no way that it did not touch you in some way, shape, or form. You say, I cannot possibly recreate that, but you can, because you are in the business of helping people fulfill the dream of home ownership every single day. Think of how many lives you have shaped, how many homes you have touched. You're not selling a car, you're not selling a shoe, you are selling a person's hopes and dreams. You are part of the most significant purchase in anyone's life who's not a multi-billionaire. And you could be telling that story. This is why we are here. This is why I work in this area of the community. These are the lives that I have touched. Let's celebrate that. That also, that humanity helps shape culture as well. And lastly, I think we can focus on our voice to the consumer in telling the story. If you don't think that how you are presented to the consumer and how the consumer perceives you impacts your ability to recruit, you are fooled. It has everything to do with it, because agents want to work with companies that are able to talk to their consumers like no one else. I'm going to show you an example from Coldwell Banker, which I represent, in a way that we've been able to have our voice to the consumer focus on that emotional aspect of home ownership and how it shapes people. So you're going to see this ad, which is telling the story of home, of two lost souls who come together to find a place to call home. And if you look at it, what that was is a combination of the first 2 points. It's culture and humanity combined in one for a voice to the consumer. These are the stories that you can tell, that you should be telling, that we should be focusing on. And there's the right way to do it and the wrong way. But just like in every good story, there is always a villain. And the villain for you, as someone who is trying to attract talent, is time. Because when you meet with that recruit, when you meet with that someone who you want to join your team, join your brand, whatever it might be, there is that feeling and that sense of excitement at that initial meeting. And then time is your enemy. Because the longer that it goes, the more questions creep up into their mind. But if you are telling them a story that they can connect with at an emotional, human, physiological level, that is something that stays with them. So it doesn't matter how much time passes. Because the next time they connect with you, they will be reminded of that story. They will empathize with you if we are telling our story the right way. So I encourage you to go forth and tell your story. No one else can tell it for you, and you should not try to emulate anyone else's, because you're the only one who can tell the exact right story for you. Thank you very much.